always get together, as unpleasant as it might be, we get together to voice outrage and reprehension when acts of hate occur anywhere in the city of New York, when acts of racism, acts of anti-Semitism, acts of homophobia take place. And we gather to denounce those acts. Today, we know exactly what's going to happen later this week because of the track record that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has shown for too many years now. We know exactly how outraged and how reprehensible we will feel when we hear the empty rhetoric, the rhetoric that questions what caused the attacks of September 11th, the rhetoric that supports the human rights abuses taking place in his own country under his regime, the rhetoric that supports an illicit nuclear arms program that threatens regional and world peace, and the rhetoric that causes pain and suffering to millions and millions of people in his own country. We are in New York, we stand united to send a very strong message, an undeniable message to Mahmoud Ahmadinejad that you are most unwelcome and that we can't wait for you to leave town. Thank you.
Thank you, Comptroller Liu. The Public Advocate of the City of New York, the Honorable Bill de Blasio.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, JCRC. Thank you, Iran 180. Ahmadinejad doesn't belong here because his government is the #1 sponsor of state terrorism anywhere in the world. The #1 in the world. A government devoted to terrorism. A government devoted to war. This is supposed to be an organization devoted to peace. It's supposed to be an organization where governments get together to find common ground to improve our world. How on earth can a man bent on destruction and violence be speaking before that same body? So he's not welcome here, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. We finally have seen in the last year or two stronger sanctions. We've finally seen the kind of clear statements from governments in the West that we will simply not allow Iran to acquire nuclear weapons. We've finally seen the kind of determination we needed to see, not only to protect the state of Israel, but to confront Iran more fundamentally and to end any premise that Iran could be dealt with as anything but a state sponsor of terror. Let's go farther now. Let's attack at the core of the Iranian economy. Working with JCRC and Iran 180 and other great allies, we have begun to attack the companies that are undergirding the Iranian economy, the Western companies that are undergirding the Iranian economy every day. We saw the dramatic investigation of the British bank Standard Chartered just a few weeks ago. It's clear that there are still Western companies not doing what their governments are asking and not cutting off Iran from its economic lifeblood. So this gathering today is powerful because we're standing up and we're saying we will not accept the continued role of Iran in the international world on these terms. But let's now put our money where our mouths are. Let's ask the companies and demand the companies of the West stop propping up this regime. Let's take it down once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Public Advocate de Blasio. It's my pleasure to call upon the Congresswoman representing this district, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney.
Thank you so much. And especially thanks to Iran 180 for bringing us all together today, once again, to denounce the presence of Iran's president, Ahmadinejad, at the United Nations, a building that was built for peace. He has no business being in that building. In the last year, Iran has grown ever closer to developing a nuclear weapon. We're no longer talking about it. Instead, we're wondering when. And just last week, Iran's vice president and head of its nuclear program admitted in an interview given to Al Hayat that Iran gave foreign officials misleading facts about the state of their nuclear progress. The UN was established as a forum for peace. Ahmadinejad has repeatedly set the stage for a war, sponsoring terrorism around the world, abusing human rights, killing tens of thousands of his own people, propping up the corrupt regime in Syria, rushing to develop nuclear weapons. Ahmadinejad's threats against Israel have been clear. He sponsored a World Without Zionism conference in Tehran in 2005. And at that conference he said, and I quote, "Anybody who recognizes Israel will burn in the fire of the Islamic nation's fury," end quote. At a conference he sponsored to deny the Holocaust in 2006, he said Israel would soon be wiped out. We have learned the lessons of World War II. When a tyrant threatens destruction, when he acquires the means to carry out his threats, when he dehumanizes his enemy, and when he repeatedly sends terrorists to kill innocent men, women, and children, he is embarking on a path towards genocide. We know that Israel will defend itself, and that Jerusalem is and will always be a united city and the capital of Israel. Congress has repeatedly condemned and sanctioned Iran. And on June 20th, the House of Representatives voted to call on the United Nations Security Council to charge Ahmadinejad with violating the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide and United Nations Charter because of his calls for the destruction of the State of Israel. Ahmadinejad is the embodiment of all that the United Nations was intended to prevent. A sponsor of terrorism, a denier of the Holocaust, the leader of a regime that is determined to destabilize the region by building nuclear weapons, a tyrant who has murdered thousands of his own people, and a madman who has threatened the existence of a UN member nation, Israel. Not only has he called for the destruction of Israel, he is rapidly acquiring the means to do so. He has violated international law by calling for the destruction of Israel, and he has violated human decency by continuing to build weapons of mass destruction. I hope, it is my deep hope, that the members of the United Nations will let Iran's leaders know that he is UN unwelcome in a building that was built for peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressmember Maloney. It's my pleasure to call upon from Brooklyn, the District Attorney of Kings County, the Honorable Charles J. Hunt.
Thank you, Michael. It's good to be with you and the JCRC and the rest of the leaders up there in denouncing the presence of this tyrant here in New York City. It is inconceivable to me